I'm Joel Baird, the General Manager of Missoula Community Access Television, inviting you to another segment of What's Up Missoula. This month we've been getting council candidates into the studio to talk about their ideas and ambitions for a seat on City Council. Right now with me is David Doc Moore. He is running for Ward 5, and he too has been treated to my inspirational questions. Doc, thank you so much for coming by and sparing the time.
You're welcome, Joel.
I know you've been to a lot, so let's ask you the first question. So what inspired you to run for the office, City Council, Ward 5?
Well, it was kind of a last-minute filing, and so I filed just before the end of the day on the deadline. And it was because we were only going to have one candidate on the ballot. And I grew up in Great Falls and moved to Missoula, I don't know, 30-some years ago, Missoula County. Yeah. And so many times we see just one person on a ballot, and I don't think democracy works well that way. So it was worth the filing fee just to have kind of a race. And it's been rather interesting. Some people weren't real pleased that I did that, but I think that it's important in Missoula that we get people involved civically so that they don't feel like they just have one choice when they go to the ballot box, because I think that disenfranchises voters over the long run, which leads for poor governance.
Yeah, they get, you mean, a little bit of apathy. They say, oh, gee, nobody else is running, and this is the only choice. I guess I'll not send in my ballot since this person is obviously going to win.
Exactly.
Yeah. Describe your city, Ward 5. What do you like about Ward 5? What would you improve?
Well, I'm kind of a new neighbor there. I just purchased a home there last November.
Right, and you've just been working on it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been painting all week. Out of all the neighborhoods I looked at, it was the one that felt most like home. And I looked all over the county, East Missoula, you know, where I used to have a home. And so I could have purchased anywhere, but it just seemed comfortable. You know, the neighborhood seemed good. And the neighbors that I've met so far have been pretty friendly, and just generally is just a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, nothing lacking. I mean, if you were on council and you were able to make a special attention towards Ward 5, is there something you'd say, well, if I were on council, I would do this to improve my neighborhood?
Well, one of the things we talked about at the forum the other night was getting money to improve the road in South Hills Fairway Loop. And part of what I said was we need to wrest a little bit more money away from the downtown area where we seem to spend an awful lot of money and start spending it in outlying wards on road improvement and those type of things. Because it seems like we spend pretty focused on the downtown area.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is the seat of city government after all, so it may be natural that the people think of that. And there's also that ERA money was spent to improve Broadway up to these red X's here at Alder Street. And I think it was $1 million on the 3 blocks, but it was shovel ready. And that's when they put in those bike lanes, you know, on the inside and a lot of amenities on the curbs. Okay, so if you were elected to a seat on the city council and not be an incumbent, I guess you have to imagine it, what do you imagine you'd like most about the job?
I would think that the Monday night city council meetings would be probably what I would like most. Now, I've sat on committees in the state legislature, and that can be the most long thing.
Yeah, and so you commuted up to Helena to do that.
Well, you're over there for 4 months. So committee work is where everything gets done, and then you kind of hash it out during the council meeting. So it'd be similar to a floor session. And that will be the most interesting thing. Now, okay. I'm hoping for a change in mayors, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Okay.
So if you had the job, you'd think, well, I'll be working with someone new and sympathetic, or?
Well, I think our city council right now has quite a few people that are from, you know, new to the area. They're from out of state. I don't think that they have a lot of the Montana values that native Montanans have, where they think about working families. They're into a lot of smart growth and progressive ideas that doesn't really give balance to the council. We have very few conservatives on the council, or fiscal
Yeah.
conservative people on the council.
Maybe 2 now, just a guess.
Yeah. So they're kind of voices in the wilderness, so to speak. And even if I do get elected, we still wouldn't have much of a difference in overall numbers. I think it's still important to have that dialogue so that you can hold the other side accountable if what they're doing turns out not to make sense for the community in the long run.
Right. So you feel like even if there wasn't, you weren't able to carry out your objectives, at least you would bring a heightened discussion on how taxes are spent or how much taxes are raised and so on.
Right. It's all about transparency in government.
What do you imagine you'd like least about this job?
Oh, there's always some people that think that you have a little bit more power than you do.
Yeah.
Because you're just one part of an organization and you can only do so much. But I have found that a lot of times you can help people with just within 3 phone calls. You say, well, I may not know the answer to that question. So you call somebody and they say, well, I don't know either, but they call somebody else. And by the end of that 3 phone call chain, you're able to get back to that person and give them some information. And you might not be able to help them, but you can try and steer them in the right direction.
Yeah, I think people are inherently shy, the majority of them. And so when something goes wrong, it's really difficult for them to reach out. I remember having a deer, for instance, die in my fence, and there it was, pretty large. And I didn't know who to call. I thought, well, are the garbage men going to come? That's ridiculous. Should I call animal control? And I called the mayor's office, and I called animal control, and I called, I think it was called BFI then, before it was Allied Waste. But, I really had to go around, and of course, for my work, I'm used to this kind of extroverted, what have you. But I remember growing up in my family, it was my dad, but everyone else was like, I'm not calling in a pizza. There's some people that are very shy.
But
So
I understand what you're saying. Before
Yeah.
I retired, I was in the automotive business, and you would have a lot of times wives call up for their husbands because they didn't want to get on the phone
Yeah.
and talk. And
They just don't like to do it. They don't know who it is. They don't want to talk.
yeah.
It's kind of sweet in a way, but I think that's a good insight you have. So here's question number 4. What have you learned about Missoula while campaigning? Like anything different than when you said that night, oh, I'm going to file, to bring contrast into this situation?
Well, I always thought the city was run by a lot of special interests, but you get these questionnaires from different groups, and then I really realized just how many special interest groups there are, because you'll get these questionnaires and a lot of them I didn't answer because they only have one idea what they would like to do for the community, and it's what's best for them, not what's best for the entire city of Missoula and the county too, because you can't really separate Missoula from the county because we're such a large part of the county.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the problems we have with our makeup right now is they don't say no to enough people when they should. And so it's kind of special interest driven.
Interesting. So you're saying, when I envisioned the question too, and of course that's always different, what I learned while interviewing people, that they were going to say while going door to door, the constituents brought up this, oh, I never thought of that. But you're saying when you filed, different groups wanted to check you out and say, okay, this is this guy's position. And when you looked at it, you thought, well, they're totally biased. Like either you're with them or you're out. And you thought, well, I'm out anyway, so I won't bother to respond. But you got a lot of them.
Right, and a lot of people looking for endorsements. And that's kind of the interesting thing, now that you bring it up, is this is supposed to be a nonpartisan race.
They always say that.
But it really isn't. We've got Republicans and Democrats and whatever else we have. And so they're out walking, supporting doors. And I didn't ask for any endorsements from anybody because my opponent has all the in-groups out working for her, so it would be really a miracle if I won.
Oh, I see. So your hopes are not super high right
No,
now.
I mean, I'm not even going to go to her endorsements, but she has all those groups that are willing to put the time, effort out there, and they just overwhelm you. And
Oh,
that's
I see.
been the problem with conservatives in Missoula, is that they don't have the ground game at
The
doors.
foundation of these foot soldiers, the structure, you're saying.
Right, because you'll have one group out walking or another group calling or maybe a third, repeats the walking. so you're not doing everything yourself.
Oh, I see. Well, thank God for the miracle of television, because I mean, you can use it on a YouTube, or you can, we're going to run it every day for a week. There's 16,000 households connected, but it's hard to say who's watching when.
It was interesting. I was talking to my opponent the other night at the forum, and I was actually coaching her a little bit on go on door to door, and she says, "Well, I should have talked to you 2 weeks ago."
Oh,
It would have saved her a
too
lot of
late.
time. Because I've done this for a couple of election cycles, so
Oh, I see.
I know how to save a little bit of time when you're doing that sort of thing.
Okay. Okay, here's number 5. And this is a broad one, and you can take, I think, a certain amount of time because we have up to 20 minutes. Describe, in your view anyway, some of Missoula's strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, I'll hit our weaknesses first.
Okay.
We've lost over 1,000 manufacturing jobs. And I don't believe that we really, in fact, there was an economist from University of Montana on the news last night saying that we really haven't felt the full impact of that, which is what I've been saying for quite a while.
And you mean the closing of like I don't know if it was called Smurfit Stone Container when
Right.
it did, and the Bonner Stimson Lumber Mill in
Yeah.
Bonner.
Because one of those good paying mill jobs supported, if you look at it from an economic standpoint, 7 or 8 other jobs in the community.
Right.
Now, fortunately for a lot of those skilled workers, they've been able to go out of state and work, and some are commuting back and forth between here and the Bakken, but that's hard on families.
Right.
And so we're replacing those jobs with retail jobs, which are historically lower paying, fewer benefits, and everybody seems happy about it. But if you look at long-term economic strength, say I watched Great Falls go through this when the smelter closed.
Yeah.
It just took the heart out of that city. And only now is it really kind of coming around, and they're hoping for some big projects to come in or to really employ some people at a high wage.
Right.
You know, when you have people talk about, well, we got 10 people coming in the community, they're going to make $65,000 a year. Well, that no way, you know, in IT and research or whatever, that no way offsets 500 workers that made over $50,000 a year.
Right, with union jobs that they had at both those mills.
Right. And that being said, the other strength of Missoula is that Montanans are pretty tenacious. You know, I've retired, I could leave the area, but I love Missoula. And that's the thing. People come to Missoula and they love it. So they're going to stick it out, good times, bad times. And they're willing to work through that. But we also have to keep an open mind when we're doing zoning and trying to attract businesses that it can't just be what they consider clean or green. We really need to get as many different ideas for new businesses to come to the community and try to lift some of that odious regulation. I don't want to name names, but you know, I know a lot of people in the business community, and they've talked about difficulties they've had in new construction dealing with the city and getting
Permits and inspections.
and then the final inspection, how one little thing could keep them from opening for 1 to 3 months. Well, that could be thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth of lost income.
Right.
And people say we're they always say we're business friendly, but I would say go to the businesses you deal with a lot and ask them about it, and you'll get a different response.
Interesting. I mean, were you impressed, and I don't know, maybe Rick can tell us, you know, how much time we have left, with the change of development services? The city looked at the way they were dealing with new construction. They brought in experts that said, you're not doing such a great job, and then they changed everything and renamed it at the first of this year the Department of Development Services, and it was going to be a lot more customer-oriented and so on.
We'll have to see how that works
Okay.
out. You know that saying, change the name, kill the pain?
Right. And they did remodel over there, too. He says, wow, that's a lot. Is there 5 minutes left? 10 minutes left? No minutes. Oh, we have a little bit of time.
Okay.
So Do you want to do strengths and closing thoughts?
Oh, I kind of hit the strengths when I talked about Montanans are
Oh, okay,
hardworking
yeah,
and
you
tenacious.
did kind of. That was the
Yeah,
brighter spot.
we'll stick it out. I mean, a supervisor of mine from a previous job years ago is now a janitor, but he and his wife have stuck it out.
They've gone with the changes, and so we'll make this work.
Yeah, because they like living here. My closing thoughts is that I just want people in the community to get more engaged with the city council and the city council elections, and let's try to get more of a balanced council where maybe we've got 4 or 5 conservatives and equal number of
Right, or you'd allow a skew even because it's a university or whatever, so you had 7 or 8 progressives and do 4 or 5 conservative.
Yeah, because statistically population is kind of about 60-40.
Yeah.
And Missoula's always been
Yeah,
just
it's
a
a
little
humanities
different.
school.
Yeah.
I chalk it up to being the humanities school rather than Bozeman, which is the tech one. And so there you have it. Well, on that segue then, Dr. Moore, running for Ward 5, thank you so much for taking the time to come in here. I know you guys have been going to a lot of forums and really being patient and really trying to get people involved. And on that note, dear viewer, I'm just going to remind you that this is a mail-in ballot, and the ballots are going to be sent out October 21st. So the thing to do is make sure you received a ballot to participate in the city election. If you recently moved, if you haven't voted in the last major presidential election, it's possible you're not going to see that ballot in the mail. So please look out for it. If you don't receive one, get in touch with the Missoula County Elections Office by internet, by telephone, and work out what you need to do to get your ballot. Well, thanks so much, you guys, for watching this segment of What's Up Missoula. If you know of a group and you want to see them on this program, give us a call at MCAT. The number is 542-6228. For MCAT, I'm Joel Baird. Thanks for watching.